Emily Jansen, who was here last year, who will be moderating the session with Anna Malpica, Melissa Goretzky, and Joseph Runsthrough. These are all some of our Master Teacher Fellows, and so we'll be hearing some of their stories and get to learn from their experience over the course of the next bit. So thank you so much, and I'll hand it over to Emily.
Thank you so much. I am honored and privileged to be here just as to facilitate us hearing the stories from Anna and Melissa and Joseph, and actually one more master teacher whose travel was really disrupted, trying to get from Montana to Washington, D.C. this week. So Connie Michael as well. I'm going to be chiming in a little bit on behalf of Connie as we go through this today. So let's we're going to roll right in to get us started. This is a great companion to the research that we were hearing yesterday about teachers and students in rural communities. So I'm just excited for us to have a little more of the reality of that from all of you. So those of you who have been joining us and talking about storytelling know that we've been talking a lot about characters and descriptive scenes. So this is going to be actually my first question to help us set the scene. And we also know from yesterday that I wrote this down because it really stuck with me. If you know one rural community, you know one rural community. So we're going to ask you all to help us understand yours. And so introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you teach? And tell us a little bit about your school and community.
Thank you. My name is Anna Malpica. I teach 5th grade at Nooksack Elementary. Nooksack is one of three small towns in the state of Washington. If you can get to Seattle and then go north all the way up to the border to Canada, and then go out into the county, now you're in the Nooksack area. We have 3 small towns. Each small town has an elementary school, and then we join for middle school and high school. In each elementary school, there's usually 2 of each grade level. We have in all about 2,000 students in our district, and we graduate about 100 students a year. There are no stoplights. There are some stop signs. It's very spread out. There are some small farms. There's a grocery store.
That's fancy. I'm Melissa Goretzky. I'm the high school math teacher at Power High School in Montana. It's about 3 hours east of Glacier and 3 hours south of Canada. It's right on what we call the bench of the Rocky Mountains, so the plains where all the barley and wheat for beer is grown. I will teach 8 preps next year in a 6-period class, 6 periods of the day. So I have a couple classes that are 2 classes in one. We have 104 students, K-12. We have 1 school. Although we do have 5 exits. Each exit is a street, according to, we have 3 stop signs, no grocery store. Just a bar that has the best chicken in town. And we are small. We have 123 people in our town. And I love it.
Hamida Yabi, Magaxi Chanoma Magyabi, for Petetana Pondalu Chawe, Kudeshana Jemacha, Miade Wichapito Egiabi, Kudeshana Kudejach, Mihungu John Egiabi, Wiaska Jach, Mitugash, Washitu Ishnana Egiabi, Mikushi, Irene, Wichapito Egiabi. Fellow my relatives, I greet you in my traditional way as relatives, and I view everybody, every living thing as being related. The name that I was given by my father is Magaxi Chanoa, singing duck. My father's name is Mason Runsthrough Jr. My mother's name is Joan Runsthrough. I am Assiniboine from the Red Bottom Band of Assiniboine in Fort Peck, Montana. My mother is white, and my grandfather's name is Mason Runs-Through Sr. My grandmother's name is Irene Runs-Through Irene Four-Star. You may have heard during that introduction, maybe you picked it up, that I said the name Irene. And that's because she had abandoned a few of our traditional ways. She felt vulnerable with that. So she doesn't have an Assiniboine name that she shares. She gave that up. I teach in northeastern Utah at Uinta Middle School, and comparatively, I teach in the big city. Vernal, Utah has, last I checked, about 10,000 residents. We have multiple stoplights, multiple grocery stores. My students have this identity of being country, and I enjoy giving them a hard time and letting them know that the real country folk come to Vernal to do their shopping. Uinta Middle School is one of two middle schools in our district. It's the smaller of the two, about 600 students, 6th through 8th grade. And I teach 6th grade math. I teach 5 out of the 7 sections of our 6th grade math. So I see about 130, 150 students on a given day. The demographics in that area is majority white, but relatively high Native American population. Vernal is right outside of the Fort Duchesne, Uinta and Ore Indian Reservation in Utah. Many of our students travel from reservation communities to my middle school. They ride the bus 30, 45, 60 minutes in the morning and the same drive back in the evening. So that's a little bit about where I'm coming from. I've seen a lot of, my school has seen a lot of revolving teachers, just kind of the way things have worked out. Going on my 3rd year at this school, I will be the senior 6th grade math teacher. I've had a different partner teacher each year, and I'll have a new one this year as well. Because of that, I've kind of been thrust into a leadership position in regards to 6th grade math, one that I never really thought I would have. I don't enjoy doing that kind of stuff, but that's where I find myself.
Thank you. And
Sorry, I mentioned there's a few things. So I gave you my traditional name, Magaksi Chanoa, but my government name, the name that the government knows me by, is Joseph Runs-Through. And there's a couple different spellings. You know, when you're filling out a form and it's like, do you have any aliases? I have aliases because different government agencies will accept a space in my last name and some won't. And so I have these different ways, and some will force a hyphen. And so I've got Runs-Through with a space, I've got Runs-Through stitched together, I've got Runs-Through with a hyphen. So my government name is Joseph Runs-Through. My close friends that I've had for a long time, they call me Joe. My students call me Mr. Runs-Through. My mom calls me Jojo Potato. And my grandma's second husband calls me Billy Bob. So just a little bit about who I am, right? Those are some names that are important to me. So,
you said, did you want to share anything else about your way of introducing yourself, Joseph?
Yeah. So I try to introduce myself by all these different names to my students. When the school year starts, I let them know that these are my names, but that language and names are very important as part of our identity. And then I set the boundary with my students that I expect them to call me Mr. Runs-Through, not Mr. R, not Mr. RT, Mr. Runs-Through. And then I transition, and I used to be able to ask the students to share with me their name, the name that they would like me to call them. And for the most part, that's not problematic, but Utah has begun kind of forcing us to use names, government names. And again, most of the time that's not a problem. But this way of connecting with my students, I'm not able to connect in the same way, and to honor all of the identities that they would like me to honor them by. And so language and identity, especially in communities where you do have a larger Native American population, is very important to me, making sure that they understand that I'm coming from a place of trying to respect them and that I expect that respect in return. And it usually leads to some good conversations and community building within my share with you those names. You can call me Joseph. So, yeah.
Thank you. Here again, sort of bringing in Connie's voice into the room, who is beginning her 10th year as a 5th grade teacher at Crow Agency Public School, which is on the Crow Reservation. They have about 300 students, and the Crow Agency is the government headquarters for the tribe. They're a rural community that has a small tribal college in Montana, where Connie is, every reservation is connected or has a tribal college. And that college is the primary employer in their community. They're also incorporated into the Hardin School District, which is a small town about 15 miles away from the reservation. And then the next largest city away is 50 miles away. And I think I remember Connie saying that Connie herself actually has a very long commute for her to get to her school every day. And Indigenous culture is woven into their school year throughout the year, and they try to integrate Native language as much as they can into their daily lessons. So I will want everyone to just share a little bit about sort of what you're working on in your schools, what your NOYCE projects are connected to this work. I'll start kind of keeping Connie's voice in the room, and then I'll pass it down. In Connie's work, she shared with us a lot about bringing the student community to the center of learning, to value their reality and give them agency in becoming change makers. Connie says, "My students often feel as though life is happening to them, and they can only react instead of them having an impact." The Crow believe that water is sacred. However, water rights is something the tribes of Montana struggle with. Water in our community is often contaminated. It's affected by agriculture, high minerals, and the flow of the river was disrupted by the building of a dam. Students are given, in her curriculum, opportunity to dive into the study of the local water system, and as they learn about the water's significance, testing water, finding EPA graphs and data about the health of the river, they begin to ask questions and see connections between other areas in our community. This year, it was the extreme weather, specifically hailstorms, and the health of the river and community as a whole. This lesson began as a STEM unit, and as students gained agency, it became a student-driven investigation into their community, growing and building as they continue to notice and wonder, digging deep into how their lives are affected by things they can and can't control, and how they can make change. And I remember Connie sharing with us in our earlier conversations about doing a lot of that, being in place and in community, and visiting Yellowstone National Park, visiting and collaborating within their community as they did that. So I'll pass it down. Anyone, do you want to go, Melissa?
I'll go because I'm with Connie. I'm in the same NOYCE project as Connie. And it truly is about bringing STEM to students that don't necessarily see their lives that way. Most of my students are farmers or ranchers, and so I try to show them how high school mathematics is absolutely in their everyday life. We build alfalfa farms and figure out the best places to put them in the county, and we look at the data on the cows that have been sent to the USDA and how the weather affected the production of beef. And it is about bringing that student agency, getting them to see that what we're using in the classroom is actually in their real life.
No? Okay. I think that's a good segue, actually, in our project. So, in elementary schools, when COVID hit, there was a focus on reading, writing, and math, at least in our area, and science kind of went to the back burner. Does that relate to anyone? So, our grant is about bringing science education back to elementary schools. And so our particular part has kind of two facets. One facet has been letting teachers, elementary school teachers, experience science education as the student so that they can feel relief, feel joy, feel inspiration, feel curiosity again, just like we want their students to feel. So that's one piece that we're doing. Another piece we're doing is this series of place-based outdoor field trips. That's what they are, people. They're field trips. And the kids love it. It's essentially what we have now is a K-8 field trip experience program that takes kids in places in our area, Mount Baker, the Nooksack River that flows down, the Silver Lake, the parks, the small farms in our area, down to Birch Bay, which leads to the Pacific Ocean. And each grade level is partnered with a community program that literally comes into the classroom and teaches the content by the experts themselves. So for example, the 4th grade is partnered with the Nooksack Salmon Enhancement Association. So they bring 6 lessons about the life cycle and environment of the salmon, and that curriculum was developed with the Heschelesson language, Spanish language materials for our migrant-speaking families, or our migrant families. The field trips themselves were designed to have career connections and to make sure they're accessible to all students, so everyone gets to have this experience. The 4th grade program also comes with a fish tank for the school, and so each year we get eggs that then hatch, and I cannot paint for you enough the picture of when the school opens and the kids come into school and they gather around the fish tank every morning to see, did any of them hatch? That one's hatching, I'm sure of it. A couple of years ago we had a fish that had 2 heads. It was an amazing phenomenon. There was a lot of talk. But even beyond that morning experience or the end of the day check-in or on the way to music class, in addition, you'll see students and teachers standing outside that fish tank and talking about more than just about the fish. Sometimes I've even seen my principal holding the hand of a special friend on tour for a little while and stop at the fish tank, and that peace that comes from that connection of life right there, it's just beautiful. And then eventually they take the fish out to the Nooksack River and release them. And they do enhancement of the river along the way, and eventually they will have seen and experienced protection for the waters from the top of Mount Baker all the way down to the ocean, the animals that live in all those places, and how to keep the watershed safe for all the people.
Anna, can you share a little bit more about, you had said the thrust behind your project really was reviving enthusiasm among the teachers at your school for STEM education. So I'm curious what change you've seen in the teachers, but also what your reaction and response you're getting from those community members who are involved.
So the community members want to be involved, and if I have a message to give, it's please reach out to your community, because every community has strengths and specialties, and there are people that want to share them with your schools. So that would be one piece of advice, one takeaway. But the teacher's response, I think, they feel relieved, honestly. They want to teach science, but they feel afraid. They feel ill-prepared. They don't understand the new standards. There's not professional development that makes them feel like they have access to it. They don't have curriculum. So to have a community partner come in with the curriculum, it's like, oh, phew, okay. And then they get to experience the curriculum along with the kids, and how can you not? We're going to take a bunch of 4th graders out in the rain. We live in Washington State, in the Pacific Northwest, to go to the river to release the fish. Like, everything about that is going to be wet and fun. And that gives them an opportunity to find a way into science education again when they've been feeling like they don't know how.
Thank you. Yeah, Joseph, what has been happening at Utah?
So I'm with Utah State University's Data Science in Rural Utah with Mathematical Modeling Project. And some of you may be familiar with the mathematical modeling process. It was very new to me. My background is actually elementary education. That's what I got my undergrad in. And I just kind of fell in love with 6th grade math. I was never a math person before. So this experience with Utah State University and learning about the mathematical modeling process has really helped to kind of transfer my perspective of like a one right answer approach to math into more of a helping students to bring the skills and abilities that they already possess. A lot of times we look at their abilities in terms of deficits of, my students can't multiply double digits, they can't add decimals, things like that. But approaching it from a perspective of, you have skills and abilities, let's bring them together into this real world problem and see what we can come up with and give it a good try. And so we're trying to bring those kinds of modeling tasks into our classrooms and kind of explore the possibilities with that.
Do you want to share any more examples from? What does that look like actually in your classroom?
Yeah. So one of I'm going to share a challenge. My school district has really been pushing a very scripted curriculum. We have lessons that they want us to go through. They give us slideshows. They want us to go through those slideshows. And most days, from the time that the bell rings for the class to begin to the time that the bell rings for them to leave, I'm just trying to get through those slideshows. And so I've been a little bit frustrated where I'm excited about trying to bring in these modeling tasks and allowing students to maybe explore the possibilities a little bit more. That's been really difficult. Now I'm going on my 2nd year with the project, and this coming year I just got back from a different project, a workshop with Montana State University in Bozeman about indigenizing curriculum, bringing indigenous perspectives into curriculum. And one of the things that kind of just stuck with me is that, like, nothing's ever going to be perfect. And that's just kind of how education is, that the circumstances will never be just right. And I just have to do it, I'm in a little bit of a position where I think I can do that, where they want some consistency with the math teachers. And so my plan is just to, not every lesson, but from time to time, just bring it in, and if they get mad at me, then they might get mad at me. And we can deal with that, later. But that I want to commit to actually bringing those tasks into my classroom. At the end of the school year, this past academic year, I did have, it wasn't quite a perfect modeling task, but it was more of a exploratory task. I had my students kind of make some origami frogs that will jump, and I had them kind of create their own method for measuring distance or whatever they want to measure, height, distance, size, things like that. And thinking of a way to display their data and to gather their data. And so my students really enjoyed that. I was able to do that because we had finished the curriculum that we were going to get through. It was like the last week of school. And I kind of joke with my students. I tell them I'm not a fun teacher, I'm a math teacher. They're always asking to do something fun. And they'll poke back and say that we do some fun stuff occasionally, but that was certainly one of the more fun lessons that they were mad at me that I was making them do math in the last week, but they were still excited about the fact that they were getting to play around a little bit. So.
Thank you.
I kind of want to piggyback off of that. So being from Montana, we have to use indigenous education in all of our schools, and that's one of the things that I just love. I've been able to partner with the Blackfeet tribe, and we make a quote every year in my geometry class at the end of the year. We have the star quilt masters from Browning come down and speak to my students, and they get to share the tradition of what the star quilt meant and the giving ceremony that happens in a lot of the basketball games, because basketball is the sport in Montana. And it's an amazing opportunity. And so don't be afraid to throw stuff in that you're not allowed to, because you have to.
Let's plan curriculum, and you want everything to go perfectly, just as you plan. But is anyone willing to talk about, a time when things just weren't going perfectly, weren't going right. Tell us a little bit about the mishaps and what you learned from them.
Okay, I think one of the things, so Montana has not always been the place that I've lived. I grew up in New Hampshire, I was military, I moved around, I've taught in Virginia and Georgia, and before moving to a town of 123, I taught in inner city Baltimore. So I've done the big urban schools, and when you move into a rural community, one of the biggest challenges is you're an outsider. And you either embrace that or you leave. And I think that's one of the big reasons there's a lot of turnover is people are afraid to embrace it. You have to get your community involved, like Anna said. You have to ask those farmers to come in and help you with a project, or the grandmas that want to quilt. They come in every year and they help me teach quilting. Or you go to the senior center twice a month to have dinner with all the people that are there. If you don't embrace your community, they won't embrace you as a part of it, and that's the biggest challenge you face in rural education is you have to become part of where you live and embrace all of it. It's scary, but it's so rewarding when you do. Because once you're a part of that community, they'll do anything for you. I was at another workshop about a month ago, and I came home and 3 of my high school kids had put up my swimming pool for me for the summer. They're like, Ms. G, we know you need your pool up, so it's up and ready to go. And that only happens when you're accepted as part of that community.
Clarifying question, are you talking specifically with our NOYCE projects or just education in general?
General.
Yeah, I went general, sorry.
Talking challenges. So one big challenge for me as an Indigenous man has been kind of reconciling this new part of my identity. I'm going on my 8th year of teaching, so not super new, but being an authority figure has been a huge challenge for me. That I sometimes have to, discipline students for behaving in a way that I don't want them to. And that's really what it comes down to, is that I don't want them to do something, and I'm going to enforce my will on them. And that's a really hard thing for me to do, coming from my own experiences in education as a student, that was constantly done to me. I've never been a good student. I don't get good grades. And specifically with my project, one of the things that has been difficult is, taking the classes. I'm working on my master's degree right now and keeping up with the work that's required for that. I love to learn, but to actually produce the things that I'm being told to produce, that somebody's imposing their will on me, that's difficult. And then to take that and be that person to other students, right? To be the person that might make an Indigenous student feel unwelcome in an educational space. That's been a challenge, and to wrestle with that kind of conflicting parts of my identity. That I don't feel like I'm the kind of person I'm very go with the flow. I like to let people make their own decisions. I like to give them that freedom. I like that freedom myself. So taking on that role of kind of an enforcer of a system that I don't always agree with, and knowing that my livelihood kind of depends on that. That's been a challenge.
It's like, do you want to?
You're going
on
on
those
those
field
field
trips.
trips.
That's like field trips, not going smooth every time.
It's all good.
Do you want to share one of the conversations that we all had a lot as we were talking about this, and you were sharing with me about being in rural communities, being in your own communities, is about building trust. trust that there's sometimes being an underlying maybe hesitation, distrust from your students, from families, from the community. So anyone want to speak a little bit about that challenge and how you have gone about building that trust and what that looks like?
I think Melissa spoke to this some already, but truly inviting family members, community partners, leaders in your community to come into the classroom really does help establish some of that trust with families. I have found that if I ask, they will come. And if I don't ask, they won't come. And the not asking takes away the trust. It builds the, well, then what's going on in that classroom? Kind of wonder. But I also take a lot of pictures. I like to take pictures just in general, and we have a school platform that we can share pictures with the family, and they just love seeing their children doing whatever we're doing, learning whatever we're learning. Even if it's truly reading at their desk, they still like to see those pictures too, and that helps to build that trust about what we're doing. I've been teaching in that same small school district for 28 years, and I am teaching students of former students now, and that has positives and negatives, but it does help establish, staying in the community helps establish trust. I don't live in the community that I work in. I live in Bellingham, which is about a 30-minute drive out of town, but I think also making the drive helps build trust. They know I'm coming out because I care about this community, and I stick around because I care about this community, and that helps build trust as well.
Connie said something about that too, because Connie has to drive like 50 miles, really. She drives from Billings, and in a snowstorm in Montana, that could be hard because we don't have snow days. Cold days, snow days, those don't exist. You go to school. And so I know for her, she's built trust by going. Her kids know that she's going to be there no matter what. And it's the same I live in the community that I work in, and you have to not be afraid to get your hands dirty. I've branded cows with the kids because I had no idea what that was like, or helped them move them to summer pasture, or gotten in the combine and helped with harvesting wheat to find out about what they do all summer. With the farming community, I found that they're hesitant to trust because they're afraid you're going to take their kids away. And it's been about saying, no, I want your kids to experience the world, but bring something back to the farm. So I tried a lot to find career paths, like what is your farm, what are you paying somebody else to do at your farm that you could do? Well, let's figure out how you can go out and do those things. And being consistent. Consistency is absolutely key to building trust.
And I'll just elaborate on what Anna mentioned about time. A lot of what I'm going to say applies to rural communities as well as indigenous communities. But a lot of people might look at me and assume that when I teach indigenous students, when I teach native students, that there's an instant bond of trust. And a lot of times there is a little bit of a, hey, like we're kind of similar. But that doesn't necessarily translate into like a deep trust. That trust is a time investment. A lot of these communities we've talked about kind of revolving teachers. A lot of these communities experience this teachers kind of coming and going. And so it's hard it takes time, right? If you're in the community over time, then people will start to open up to you, but also seeking genuine relationships with people, not just, hey, I'm reaching out because I want your student to come to school. That's good, but also seeking a relationship with people in the community for no reason other than that you want to have a relationship with them, that you want to get to know them, that you want to be a help in what they're trying to do, rather than calling them and saying, hey, you need to send your kid to school, reaching out and saying, I schools. And after 5 years, I'm only barely kind of scratching the surface of the relationships with the youth tribe, with members from that tribe, with specific families that may have had me teaching a different students at different times. Just this last year, I had a student that came up to me and asked if I remembered somebody from a different school, and it was their cousin. And so these relationships that are built over time are key in building that trust.
I'm going to cycle back one more time just to build off of the relationship piece. And I'm actually going to give a shout out to my teaching partner, because one of the things that she does to build a relationship with her students is that at the beginning of the year, she tells each student, I'll come to one thing, one basketball game, one football game, one soccer event, one 4-H showing. What is the thing that you want me to come to? And she makes the effort to show up for those kids. And whether you're in an urban school or a rural school, the relationships before anything else is going to make such an impact in your classroom. And that showing up piece, the investment of time into the relationships, is really what's going to move the learning forward when it's all said and done.
You have to have patience. You have to have patience. Like you said, you have to invest the time, not wanting to get anything out of it. They will see that you are genuinely just trying to be a part of the community.
One last thing that I want to say on that, sorry.
I know.
That I know a lot of you right now are thinking, well, that's great, but I work until 3, right? And I'm the same way. I try to leave at 3:15. I don't take work home. I'm very judicious about the times that I do grade after work. I try my very best not to work outside of work. But to find these opportunities when you're doing the things that you are already going to do. I love to bird watch, so I go to a bunch of bird watching events that our local Department of Natural Resources hosts, and I see these families there, and that's where these connections are built. I go to community events for the youth tribe. Those are things that I already want to do. Go to these dances, go to these events where there's going to be singing. I went to a Christmas event where they had a singing competition, and I won the competition. And so, like, doing these things that you already want to do, that's where you want to find those relationships. It's not in, like, saying, great, I've got to plan some time to, and if you want to go to those 4-H showings or to those football games, like, do it. But don't feel like you have to, like, fit into one specific thing of, like, this is work and I'm doing work. Because, again, we want it to be that genuine connection.
Well, you're genuinely a part of the community that way, for sure. I forgot to spark this for all of you or prime you that to sort of bring your own inquiry and curiosity into this conversation, because in just a moment we'll invite you to ask your questions. But before we do that, I want to know from all of you, I want you to share with everyone what are the strengths or the superpower of your students or the community where you teach. And I'll share. I have Connie's here. Connie says, the culture of my students is their superpower, one they don't always embrace. But with Indian Education for All mandates in Montana, we encourage students to see their culture as an asset and something to be proud of. What would you say in your schools, your communities, what is the superpower?
I think for NOYCE, one of our strengths actually comes from what some people might have a misconception about rural schools, that they're less rigorous or that the families don't care about school, and that's actually totally the opposite that I have found, at least in our rural school, is that the families care tremendously and that the work is absolutely rigorous, and we are pushing to the ends of what's next in what we can teach all the time. And I don't know if everyone knows that about rural schools, but it's actually a really fun place to work.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll jump in next. So I've got kind of 2 things that I want to share. First, I guess I'm going to zoom out to the whole community. The community that I live in, while I recognize there are some problems and that there are some times where I haven't really felt welcome in the community. Our community is excellent at celebrating each other. Like I said, there's 10,000 people, but they love their small town feel. There's a local Wendy's that you can call up and they'll put any celebratory message you want on their board. We recently had our local hockey team went and won their national championship. Almost an undefeated season. It was undefeated until the championship. They lost one game the entire time, and just huge celebrations. I don't even watch hockey. I don't love hockey, but I knew about it because everybody's talking about it. Everybody's lifting these people up. I've had champion bull riders in my class, and people congratulate them, and you know about what's going on in their lives, and they just make a big deal out of those things. But other than that, just kind of like what you had mentioned, Anna, that there is support from the families at home. I know a lot of teachers around the country sometimes feel like, the parents are against us as a teacher, and I don't want to give you the wrong impression. That stuff does happen. I look at the Facebook comments, try not to, but like when it comes down to the reality of it, when I call home about a behavioral issue, the parents are on my side. When I call home about missing work, the parents are on my side, and they really truly want to support their children in their education at school.
Yeah, I would say the same things. The other thing is, they're so hardworking. My kids get up before dawn to feed their animals before they come, the 30 minutes into school, and then our school's so small, so everyone participates in sports or some sort of extracurricular after school, and then they go home and they've got to do their chores on the farm after school. And I mean, some of these kids are putting in 16-hour days, but they're still willing to come and put in the work at school. And they know that if they don't, I'm gonna call their dad, or I probably will see him at the bar or somewhere, and it's gonna come up. And they are just so willing to do the work, and they want so much more. I've been able to put in dual credit classes now within my own classroom, and it's been a big piece in the community. The community is so supportive of the fact that we're bringing them more and more opportunities.
Thank you. This is your opportunity. You've given us a lot, shared a lot about your students, your communities, what you're doing in your classrooms. So I invite all of you, what are you curious about? What do you want to know more about from Anna, Melissa, and Joseph? There's some microphones, I see a whole bunch throughout. There's probably one near you. Just, follow your curiosity, take a step up, and while, I know you're all just like gearing up, so I will, as you think of your questions, I'll share a little bit. I had asked Connie about what her students need to thrive in her community. And she shared a little bit about the challenges in that too, so I want to share what she said. She said, I often joke that I either teach in rural Montana or on Mars. Access to technology is not equitable, internet is not always reliable with the extreme weather conditions we experience, and students who come from poverty don't have home devices. Students don't have access to school all the time due to limited transportation and responsibilities to family. And the jump from a community with little opportunity and possibility, and high poverty and high substance abuse, to a city and eventually college is a jump that students aren't always ready for. They need opportunities to be exposed to a world they don't always have access to. Field trips, college visits, peer experiences with students outside the reservation, all things to consider with our students, not just textbook learning. Our schools need teachers who are trained and high quality. Students need high expectations, just like the students in city schools, while showing respect for their unique backgrounds and skill sets, as well as the jobs they may want to stay and do in the community. So I know you all are open and kind and willing to share your challenges, your successes. What do you all want to know about teaching in rural communities, about teaching in Indigenous communities. No curiosity? Yes, we'll keep going.
So when I first got this job at NOYCE, I was fresh out of college, and I had applied to many places. And at the interview, and then after the interview, they said, well, what are you gonna say if we offer you this job? And I thought in my head, I didn't say this to them. I said, well, that's cute. I'll take this job for a few years in this little county school, and then I'll go get my real job in the city. And I did grow up in a smaller town, so I found it felt like home to teach in NOYCE anyway. But I had not predicted some of the many other benefits of teaching in a small district. I felt like I was a name and not a number. My superintendents have always talked to me using my first name. They sat in professional development with us, like in the chair next to us, doing the work with us. There has never been a time when I felt like I couldn't reach out to anyone in our staff or all the way up through the superintendent and say, hey, I really need to talk to you about this. And they would absolutely make time for that. And that would never have happened in a bigger district or a place that had more layers of administration.
Not at all. I packed up my car from Baltimore, having never set foot in Montana, and drove across the country. Now, we had heard that, what had I gotten myself into at one of the other speeches, and I was like, yep, what have I gotten myself into when I drove up? But if you embrace it, it's the best. Like you said, I'm gonna get my city job. No, I will never go back to a city again.
Did you ever have a moment, though, Melissa, where you thought, I'm turning back, I'm going back?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's happened a couple of times, but I always find support within the community, and it makes me go, no, I didn't get that in the city. I didn't get that in Baltimore. I didn't even know my neighbor, and here I have the kids go, your light's on. I'm coming to your house. It's 9 o'clock. I need math out though. And that love that a community gives when you are accepted is well worth not having a grocery store, having to drive.
Travis, yes. Question.
I have a question. Thank you all for sharing these lessons and stories and challenges as well. I'm curious about your thoughts on a lot of what I've heard you all talk about is the kind of power of both within a kind of rural dynamic and in an indigenous community dynamic, the power of taking STEM curriculum, which runs the risks of being decontextualized and not as clear for our students in how it connects not only to themselves, to their personhood, to their communities, and kind of orienting the learning and the curiosity that STEM can provide us into understanding the world around them and understanding their impact in their communities. And I'm curious about lessons that you all might extrapolate from that more broadly for this STEM community. Regardless of where you're teaching, I wonder if there's some lessons, some essences here around that connectedness, in particular in thinking about kind of an indigenous view around the connectedness of place and community and purpose in why we contribute to communities that we're in, and how STEM teachers across the country might actually build that into their curriculum to promote more of a collective impact versus a kind of more individualized idea of learning.
Yeah, I'll give a shot at that. So you had mentioned running the risk of decontextualizing things. And as far as bringing indigenous perspectives into your curriculum, into education, there's a huge risk of decontextualizing things. And the most important thing, and I think this applies to bringing STEM into the class as well, is to look for authentic experiences, right? Don't try to just like go on your own and teach your students how to make a star quilt. Don't just try to like say, hey, I looked this up on YouTube and now we're gonna do it. Like seek people who are experts in that to bring them in. And if they can't come in, to get materials from them and to have open communication, asking what is appropriate to share, especially when we're talking about Indigenous knowledge. Indigenous communities have been highly exploited for knowledge, and so there's a really big weariness, is that the word I'm looking for? Wariness, I think that's what I'm looking for. Wariness of sharing or oversharing. So there are some things that are just not appropriate to bring into your classroom. So having that communication and getting information from experts, if they can't come to your classroom, at least getting guidance on how to bring that in. And then in regards to bringing STEM, of course, like if you're not an expert at something, like my background's elementary, I'm not like a higher math kind of person. If I'm trying to get a really involved, relevant math experience for my students, I want to look for somebody who has experience with that so that they can come into my class or share with me the best way to share that experience, to share that knowledge.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that. It goes back to relationships. Absolutely. Like, you can't be afraid to ask. Not knowing and trying to do it on your own, it won't be successful or authentic or as meaningful as reach out to the people. I'm not Native. I didn't grow up in a Native community. My students aren't Native, but they play basketball with a lot of the Native schools, against the Native schools, and so they have friends that are, and we reach out to those people because they're the experts. And be okay with no as an answer. They'll share what they're willing to share, and then just use that.
Yeah, I would say the exact same thing in working with the NOYCE tribe, which has been just great with our school community as well. But ask and then listen and pause and wait and then listen again, because they have important things to share and there may be some hesitancy, and so just to give the space for the relationship to build, the trust to build, and the insights that they have to share to come forward.
Oh, a question, thank you.
So this storytelling is very exciting because I feel validated. I'm young on the Mexican border, Arizona, southeastern Arizona, Bisbee, Arizona, and it makes me happy to know that I'm not a little submarine in my own rural community doing this work. I know that the border is very different from north to south, but I wanted to ask you, in my particular school, out of a staff of 7 STEM teachers for a school of 300, high school of 300. I am the only American teacher, so we do have a very difficult time filling highly qualified positions, especially for STEM, mathematics, especially. So I can't do my job without my Filipino colleagues, and so a lot of our positions are filled with excellent teachers. But they come straight from home, and they have their own time that they need to get acclimated. And so I've taken a role as a mentor, period. I can't do my job without them, right? And so I wanted to ask you if there are any dynamics like that as far as filling highly qualified positions, what the challenges have been, and some of the things you have actively done to just support your school community, because we need help, and these people are rising to the occasion and moving to rural areas where maybe other people just don't want to move. And so I'm just so grateful that we have a robust team of content experts, right? But maybe your story from your perspective in the northern border.
So I don't teach high school, and the job market in our area is actually really quite competitive, and so we're very blessed in that way. But one thing I would say about retaining teachers and getting teachers into your area is again about relationship. It's funny how we keep coming back to that. for the teachers to have a relationship with the other teachers. For if you're an administrator or someone who designs the school day, to make sure that teachers have time to connect with other teachers in their either related content, or even if they just share students and they don't share content, is there time for those teachers to connect and talk about shared kids or shared community experiences so that they feel connected to each other? I definitely could not do my job without my colleagues, and I don't know how anyone could do this job without feeling connected to other teachers, and that's the piece that I feel like would attract teachers to your area, is to know that teachers are going to be supported and have a community together.
Just to kind of add to that, education is such a multifaceted career path that I don't think any teacher preparation program prepares teachers fully, right? I don't think I've ever met a teacher who says, like, day one, I had everything down. Everything was perfect, and it's been perfect since. And so some of the skills we learn through that, I think, is focus on one thing, right? If you're helping, if you're a mentor for teachers that are not quite fully content experts, or I know one of my biggest concerns and a lot of teachers is classroom management. Like, nobody really, like, they tell you all these things, they tell you don't wipe sideways or whatever. And all these things, so, yeah, so the whole, like, you shake your body funny if you go sideways. Yeah. So, like, there's these little things, but, like, help those teachers to focus on, like, one thing, the thing that they want to be great at the end of the year. If it's content, help them to find materials that is going to help them to be a better expert in their content area at the end of the year. If it's classroom management, help them to develop a plan that will work for them. I had the experience a couple years ago. I was teaching 8th grade computer literacy, which is totally outside of, like, my professional training. And so it was very, very, like, that year my focus was content. I was coming into it with a few years of teaching experience, so luckily I didn't have to worry too much about the classroom management side of things. But then also on top of that, working with 8th graders, like, it was a huge change for me. So being able to just focus on that one thing makes it feel a little bit more manageable. And, you know, like, at the end of the day, if you're focused on your content, then if your classroom is a little bit rowdy, like, don't worry about it, right? Like, move past it and focus on that number one goal.
Jump in so that we're sort of coming to the end of our time. So first I want to say thank you for sharing so much about your experience, and clearly have experts in your own way of what I'm hearing throughout the past few days about the desire to bring STEM into the community in place-based ways, the desire to find ways to bring STEM across the curriculum and bring that together, and everything that you've all been saying and since I met you has been about bringing those things together. So I think there's so much more to learn from you. Now, if we have just one quick minute, rapid fire, to give you the opportunity to say, what is the one thing or a thing that you want to leave everyone with to remember when they go home?
Yeah, mine's quick and easy. I can go fast. Let's try it. Whatever you think is a great idea, just go for it. Like, what's the worst that could happen, right? Like, that has been our theme. My teaching partner, Paige, and I for the last year is like, I don't know, let's just try it. And you will not believe how many positive things came out of that. So that if you have nothing to take away from today until now, there you go. Let's try it.
I'd say be willing to go rural. there's lots of jobs, so be willing to go rural.
Yeah, I would say consciously identify your limits and honor them. Like I said, I go home at 3:15.